Hello, everyone. Today we'll continue talking about Sandel's great book on justice, and we'll be discussing chapter 8 on Aristotle's conception, or at least basic sketch of the just society, the good society. Aristotle claims that at the heart of the good society, the just society, is that people get what they deserve. Sometimes we use the expression get what you deserve to mean punish, and Aristotle does mean to include that, but it's not just that. Any honorific mention, any rewards, any wages, income and wealth, any kind of goods that come about in a society should be correlated with the deserve or merit of those that enjoy those things. So not just the criminal side, but also the positive side, that having things that are worth having. A good society is one in which the resources of the society are distributed in accordance with merit. That's the heart of Aristotle's political view. So let us discuss it in more detail. So if someone tells you a just society is one in which people get what they deserve, it does feel like something important has been said. That's a real theory. But the natural follow-up, the natural question to be asked to that person is, okay, fair enough, what do people deserve? In other words, knowing that a just society distributes goods in accordance with what people deserve is a great insight. But we still must know on the basis of what do we come to identify what people deserve, what is deserved, what do people deserve? And we must answer that question for us to have a better handle on the political theory that was being advocated. And let us begin with an example to get a better sense of the kind of thing we're asking when we're asking how do we settle what people deserve. So this is the case, the historical case, the real case of Callie Smart. She was a wheelchair cheerleader, and by many standards, she was very successful. She excited the crowd. She energized the crowd. She would go out and root for her team, and the fans would adore her. They would really like her. So in terms of getting people's attention, getting the crowd going, she was very good at that. However, the father of the head cheerleader, which was not Callie Smart, did not seem to be happy with that arrangement. And he pushed forward a particular proposal. Here's a proposal. So the parents of the head cheerleader, which were not Callie Smart, called for a kind of policy or requirement for someone to be a cheerleader. And that was that all cheerleaders must be able to pass a rigorous gymnastic routine. And of course, if that policy were enacted, Callie Smart would, of course, not pass, right? She's in a wheelchair. So it seemed intentional that the parents of the head cheerleader passed this policy precisely to weed out Callie Smart. Question for us, is the passing of this policy, the enactment of this requirement, a fair decision? Is this a kind of undue discrimination on the part of the parents of the head cheerleader? Or is this a perfectly fair policy, something that should be had in a good society, a just society? Aristotle would say the answer to this question, the fairness, the justice of this policy, this practice, depends on how we go about, how we should go about honoring people. And the way we should go on about honoring people is honoring people in the way that they deserve. In particular, it would be unfair to get honors that one does not deserve. In this case, being in the honor of being a cheerleader would be unfair for Callie Smart if she didn't deserve it. So getting an honor that one does not deserve is unjust, or failing to get an honor that one does deserve is also unjust. So the crucial question for us to answer whether or not this decision was fair, this policy was fair, is to figure out whether Callie Smart deserved to be a cheerleader. If she didn't, it was a fair decision because it deprived her of an honor she didn't deserve. And if she did deserve to be a cheerleader, then this policy was unfair, precisely because it deprived her of an honor that she did deserve. So then the question is, what are the virtues or qualities or excellences that are being honored by the position of being a cheerleader? What is the thing that is being celebrated by the position of being a cheerleader? And one is, of course, it's obviously energizing the crowds, right? Creating the right kind of mood. And she was very good at that. So obviously, one of the things that cheerleaders do, good cheerleaders do, is energize the crowd, right? Create an environment of support and solidarity between the fans that is kind of fun and energetic. And she did that very well. So if that's the only excellence or quality or virtue that is being enshrined by you, that settles or defines the practice of being a cheerleader, then she did deserve to be there because she did that very well. However, there's something else that cheerleaders do, and the question is whether that's integral to being a cheerleader. And that's they do a lot of gymnastic kind of routines, right? So there are the gymnastic skills that are also displayed in some of the routines that they do as a way of energizing the crowd. The question before us is, are those gymnastic skills essential to what it is to be a cheerleader? Can one energize the crowd in the right way, the way that cheerleaders do, without gymnastic skills? And if the answer is no, essential to what it is to be a cheerleader is not just to energize a crowd, but to do so via the display of these impressive gymnastic skills. That is what it is to be a cheerleader. If that's the right answer, then the policy was fair. Kelly was getting honor she did not deserve because she had only one of the two excellences or qualities that are required for cheerleading. And the policy was fair. She shouldn't be there. If it's only one, namely energizing the crowd, that is relevant for being a cheerleader, then her the policy of excluding her was unfair because she deserved to be there. She had the excellence in question, namely energizing the crowd. We don't have to answer this question for our purposes. That is, we don't have to answer whether energizing the crowd and gymnastic skills are essential to being a cheerleader. That doesn't matter for our purposes. What matters is that this example illustrates what Aristotle thinks is at the heart of justice. At the heart of justice is identifying practices and identifying the kind of excellences constitutive of those practices that make up those practices, and identifying what persons have those excellences, and those that have them deserve the roles within those practices that manifest or exemplify those very excellences. And they deserve those things, those positions, precisely because they have the excellence that constitute the practice in question. And that's justice everywhere, or at least that's at the heart of justice everywhere. That's how we come to know what people deserve. People deserve to be in roles that require the excellences or qualities that they do have. And people do not deserve to be in roles that require excellences or qualities that they do not have. That's at the heart of justice, says Aristotle. So let's actually articulate that a bit more carefully. So what is justice? What is a just society? Well, at the heart of it is justice is giving people what they deserve. A good society, a just society, is one in which all of the participants of the society have or enjoy what they deserve. Now, next question. Okay, fair enough. How do we know what people deserve? What do people deserve? And here is kind of at the heart of Aristotle's answer. Justice is teleological. That is, it is goal-directed. The goal of some social practice settles what people deserve. The first thing, the thing that is doing the work, is the goal. The goal settles what kind of practice a practice is, and that settles what kind of excellences are relevant for the roles that are required for the practice to keep going. So those people that exemplify the excellences required for the practice deserve those roles, those important roles within the practice. The cheerleader in case, justice is teleological. What's the purpose? What's the point of being a cheerleader, of the practice of cheerleading? If it is just energizing the crowd, then Kelly deserves to be there. If it is energizing the crowd through the display of impressive gymnastic skills, she does not. But the crucial question is, what is the goal? And then the other normative notions follow from that, are secondary to that. Related to that, related to the same notion of justice being teleological, is that justice is honorific. It is the bestowing of honors in the right way. A just practice is one where those who possess the correct excellences are appropriately honored. What are the correct excellences? Those that are settled by the goal of the practice. The goal of the practice shapes the nature of the practice, which identifies the qualities or excellences that are required for doing the practice well. And people deserve to have those roles to the extent that they have those excellences. That's the heart of Aristotle, and that applies to all practices, institutions within society. So put differently, it is unfair or unjust for people to be honored, to be given recognition when they do not deserve it, or they get a benefit, income, wealth, something like that, a political position, an office. It is unjust for people to have those things if they don't deserve it, or to be honored in different ways within practices if they don't deserve it, or fail, that is unjust and unfair for people to be honored when, to not be honored when they do deserve it. And that's the way in which fairness and unfairness come about, by a misalignment between the recognition, the honor, and the enjoyment of privileges and social goods that does not align well with what people deserve. That's the heart of Aristotle. The notions of rights are secondary, and here's how to make sense of that. So again, for Aristotle, a just society is one where people get what they deserve. That's the basic claim. Now, what is deserved? Well, people deserve what is fitting given their excellences or virtues or qualities in the practices that demand those excellences. That's how deserve comes about. Deserve depends upon the goal of the practice. That's how people deserve what they deserve. Rights are derivative from this story. People have a right to what they deserve, or into what they deserve only. There are no rights prior to merit or desert. Rights are secondary to desert and merit. So in contrast, the libertarian will say something like, people have property rights, that's primary. And because they have property rights, they deserve to use their goods, their wealth, and so on in the way they see fit. And then secondary to that, a derivative from that, a good society is one in which the government does not intervene with people using the property rights that they see fit. So property rights are the first thing, they're the given, and then the theories built on top of that. For Aristotle, things are in the reverse. It is the goal of the practice that settles what people deserve on the basis of the excellences that they have. And only at the end of that comes the rights that people have to different things. They have the right to a role, provided a role within the practice, provided that they have the excellence that defines the doing of the practice well. So a different way of making the Aristotelian point is that justice discriminates according to merit. Someone can have more or better things, provided that the qualities or excellences that they have merit that. And a good way of illustrating that is by the following example. Suppose a society has a lot of flutes and is trying to distribute the flutes within its people. How would one go about distributing it fairly? Well, it can be a free market. Whomever can pay more will get the better flutes. Whoever can pay less will get the worse flute. It can be a kind of egalitarian society. Everyone gets a flute and that's it. Or some other such distribution. Aristotle thinks both of those proposals are faulty in different ways. The way of distributing flutes should be in accordance with merit. And merit depends upon excellences. What excellences? Well, in this case, playing the flute well. So here's Aristotle's answer. The best flute players should get the best flutes. Their relevant excellence or quality, namely playing the flute well, makes it fitting for them to get the flutes. They deserve them and thus have a right to them. It is those that have the talent of playing the flute well that should be getting the good flutes, the best flutes. Whether or not they have the money, that's irrelevant. What matters is not property rights and what you can afford in the free market. What matters is the justice of the society. And the justice depends on merit, and merit depends on your excellences within the practice of playing the flute. Who should get the best flutes? Those that can play better. So again, this story about property rights and this story about Aristotle's conception of the good society does not begin with property rights or individual freedom, respecting freedom, or even maximizing welfare. Those are just not the relevant considerations for his conception of the good society. His conceptions rest on other notions. So here's an important application of Aristotelian theory to affirmative action programs that try to bring about a more diverse student body or faculty population or something like that. Programs that explicitly try to diversify a group. For Aristotle, here's the main question. What is the goal or purpose of a university, if a university that has affirmative action programs? What kinds of qualities or excellences are being required for playing the roles of student, professor, administrator, whatever the role may be, in order to fulfill the promise of the university well? So question number one, what's the point? What's the purpose of this practice of having a university? And that goal is going to settle or identify for us the relevant excellences that would enable us to tell which people that have those excellences can play the roles, and thereby they deserve to have a place in that institution, in that practice. If academic excellence is the only purpose for the university, then perhaps affirmative action programs aren't justified. This is debatable. Perhaps diversity promotes academic excellence, in which case affirmative action programs are perfectly justified. If diversity does not promote academic excellence, then affirmative action programs are not justified from the Aristotelian perspective. However, arguably, the university is not there merely for the sake of academic excellence, but rather the university is embedded in a society, and a legitimate goal of the university is to try to bring about, to promote a more equitable, more just, and more fair society. Arguably, that's a legitimate purpose of the university. And if that's a legitimate purpose of the university, obviously, affirmative action programs are perfectly fitting. They promote one of the things that brings about a more equitable society, namely a more diverse population of well-prepared professionals. Again, we don't have to settle this. For our purposes, the purposes for discussing affirmative action programs is for us to see how an Aristotelian would go about trying to answer the question, are these practices morally justified or not? And these are the crucial questions for us to know that answer. So what's the purpose of the state? What are the goals to settle the right kinds of excellences that identify the people that deserve to have different roles within the state? Aristotle argues that the goal or purpose of the state is to promote an environment in which people flourish and develop, in which people become virtuous agents. A legitimate goal for a state is to promote virtuous agents, citizens that are happy, that are virtuous, that are developing, that are flourishing, that are doing well. So the ones people in office who should be in office are those that have the qualities or excellences that are capable of enacting policies that promote the virtue of citizens. That's how we identify who we should be voting for, who should have different roles within society, political society. Virtuous citizens are those that develop their greatest potential, that develop the greatest potential in the human capacities, intellectual, moral, and aesthetic capacities. So it is perfectly acceptable for the state, as part of the purview of the state, to enact policies and laws that promote the development of these purely human potentials. So one important virtue is that of political activity, civic virtue, being involved in creating a good society. So virtuous agents are active in the making of political decisions for promoting the common good. And according from the Aristotelian perspective, voting for anti-discrimination laws, it's a good thing. It promotes virtue, and discrimination is bad. So good people should do it. It is perfectly within the purview of the state to enact those kinds of policies. In fact, it is the duty, the responsibility of citizens to vote for people that promote those policies, precisely because those policies are conducive for more equitable society, for more virtuous citizens. Those policies should be there. Okay, let's end here. I'll see you next time.